Well, in this very short letter, John compliments one gentleman and he sharply criticizes the other. And as we look at this today, I want us to think about which person better represents who we are. And let's be honest with ourselves. And quite frankly, I've been both people, and you probably have as well. And I've probably been the person who needed to be sharply criticized more than I would like to admit. So, as we begin looking at this, John is writing a letter and he talks to us the way that we should walk in life, because the way that we walk in life is important to God. And it's easy to walk in darkness, to think, oh, I'm not that bad. It's easy to think that I'm better than this. As I was studying this passage, I thought about little kids. You know how little kids are, right? There's a ton of stuff over there, and one of them goes over and says, what do they say? Mine. Right? It's mine. None of us act like that anymore, do we? No, as adults, we're sneaky. We take and we hide it so nobody knows where it is. Or we come up with a clever way of saying, hey, this is mine. It happens in the church. I remember years ago someone coming up to a couple of us and asking us to go up to somebody and say, could you ask them to move out of our seat? It's like, oh, I didn't know you had paid for that seat. But we do that. Even as adults, we fight against selfishness. And really, that's what I think this entire book of 3 John points out to us. You see, because our attitude towards others is a window to where our heart really is. And he's writing this to a friend. The guy's name is Gaius. And in verse 3 he says, dear friend, don't you like it when people say that to you? Hey, you're my best bud. You're my good and dear friend. I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. It gave me great joy to have some brothers come and tell about your faithfulness to the truth and how you continue to walk in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Dear friend, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. You will do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans. We ought therefore to show hospitality to such men, so that we may work together for the truth. When this letter was written, there was no Days Inn or Motel 6. Anyone who came to the church to teach or to preach would have needed to stay at somebody's house. And he was a person full of hospitality, and so he would open up his home to these people that he didn't even know. Have you ever done that? You know, I remember as a teenager, our youth choir would go out and people would open up their homes and allow some of us to stay. That's a very dangerous thing to do, to open up your home to teenagers that you've never met. You never know what they're going to do. I remember one time in Wisconsin, I wasn't a bad kid, but I had a bad habit. I was a sleepwalker. And we happened to stay at the pastor's house, and in the middle of the night, I woke up, or didn't, whatever, I don't know if you're awake or you're asleep, but I walked to his bedroom and I knocked on the door, and he opened it, or his wife opened it, and I said, "Where can I hang this?" And that's exactly what I had in my hand. Dangerous thing to open up your house to strangers, but he did that. And what I see John saying here is that when we walk in the truth, we bring joy to others. And he was an encouragement, Gaius, because he was humble and selfless. He was an encouragement to John, who's writing this letter. I'm sure that he was an encouragement to others around him, because we tend to become like those that we hang out with, don't we? And I'm positive that he was an encouragement to those that he opened his house up to. And so I just asked myself, how was he able to be an encouragement? First, it says there in verse 4 that he walked in the truth. As Becky said, the truth is not always easy, is it? But we still need to walk in it. I think that the church, and I mean the Big C church, not necessarily just us, but we struggle with truth today. We have become so accustomed to practicing spin. I'm not overweight. They're making clothes smaller today. We went to Rockford Friday and came home yesterday. I'm not speeding. Yet my speedometer says I'm speeding, and if a state trooper would have pulled me over, he could have given me a ticket. But, I was in the slow lane because other people were speeding much, much, much faster. But the truth is, I was still speeding, right? Doesn't matter that they were going 80 or 90 or 100 miles an hour or whatever But we don't like that. We like to compare ourselves to other people, other situations, rather than comparing ourselves to the truth. When I line my life up with the life of Jesus Christ, I fall far short, don't I? That's the truth. So he walked in the truth, and that resulted in him being an encouragement because he practiced the truth. James talked about that. Don't just be hearers of the word, be doers of the word as well. And the example that Christ set for us of walking in the truth. I think the other side of that we sometimes struggle with is we like to be people of the truth for other people. Right? We know what they should be doing. We know how they should be living. We fall into the trap of the Pharisees. What did Jesus say about the Pharisees? They don't practice what they preach. So we have to have a balance in truth, and that balance is love. Not only did he walk in the truth, but he was faithful in doing for others. You are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers. Are you faithful today in what you're doing for others? Or are you kind of haphazard about it and just doing it when it feels good, or doing it when people will notice? Would you guys agree with me that we live in kind of a selfish, self-centered, what's in it for me world? But when we're a person who is faithful in doing for others, we bring encouragement into the lives of the people that we're helping, into the lives of others who see us doing that. And isn't that what Jesus did? Have you ever think about that? What did Jesus get by coming here for us? Well, he got insulted. He got betrayed. He got made fun of. He was called demon-possessed. Anybody have that happen to you lately? You know? Think about it. The Son of God, they said of him, "You're a son of the devil." And yet, he was faithful to the point of death, Scripture tells us. I think all those things are wonderful in Gaius' life. But the one that I especially ask myself about is verse 8. We ought therefore to show hospitality to such men, so that we may work together for the truth. Next week we're starting a new series looking at Ephesians about working together. Excuse me. There are things that you can do that I can never do. There are things that you can do that the person next to you can never do. There are abilities and gifts and all of that that only you can do. And you know, the little kid that grabs the toy and says it's mine, they're not very cooperative, are they? But Gaius was cooperative. He was working together for the truth. He was walking in the truth, but that was synonymous with walking in love. He showed visitors Christian love. You know, next week we may have some people that haven't been in church in a while that will be here because it's our picnic and it's back to church Sunday and all of that. And some of them may walk in and they may be totally different than what we're accustomed to. Are we going to welcome them into like our house? Yesterday we had Pam's brother's memorial service, and there were a bunch of people that hadn't been in church in a long, long time. There was one group that they kind of bothered us. It was his co-workers. He started working for a moving company at 18, and he worked there up until his death. The reason they bothered us isn't because they were different or strange or anything, but we had a meal afterwards. They came in and they got their food, and they went out and they all sat together in a little cafe that the church had. And it's like, why wouldn't they come in and sit with us? You know, what, was it that foreign to them that just being in the church's gymnasium, sharing a meal with some church people and some that they just felt uncomfortable? Have you ever felt that way in your life? I mean, in church we don't, but I've often thought, what would I feel like if I went into the local bar? I wouldn't have a beer, I'd have a Diet Coke, but how would I feel? And it's our job to help them feel comfortable. We didn't went out yesterday. Pam went out and talked to them and invited them in. They stayed out there, and the truth has to be coupled with love. It's got to be equal parts. And his example, Gaius's, encouraged many others, and he was worthy of the God whom he served. And think about it for just a moment. When we're being kind to others, when we're reaching out to them that are different, when we are showing hospitality, who are we acting like? God himself, isn't he? While we were still sinners, he reached out to us. The second person that John writes to wasn't an encouragement. Diotrephes. He discouraged people. He was prideful and self-centered. Look at verse 9. I write to the church. But Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will have nothing to do with us. So if I come, I will call attention to what he is doing, gossiping maliciously about us. Not satisfied with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers. He also stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church. 3 things John says that he was doing. He was gossiping. Gossip is fun, isn't it? I love that cartoon I saw years ago that the wife is on the phone. I don't know why it's the wife. It's just what the cartoon was. Okay, don't get upset with me. And she says, I've already told you more than I heard. Gossip is fun. If gossip weren't fun, we wouldn't do it. But he's gossiping. He's saying, oh yeah, the reason he opens his house for them is because they give him wonderful gifts. The reason that they're doing this is because of, not only did he gossip, but he was being unwelcoming. Have you ever seen that in the church? Man, we have subtle ways of doing it. And finally, he was promoting unfriendliness. He didn't want any outsiders coming to his church and finding out what was going on. He sought to ruin the reputation of any people who might question his authority, and his way of running the church. He liked the way things were going, and he'd go to any length to prevent change. Prideful, self-centered, in my book, equals unloving. In an article entitled "The Art of Being a Big Shot," a prominent Texas businessman, Edward E. Butt, wrote this: "It is my pride that makes me independent of God. It's appealing to me to feel that I am the master of my fate, that I run my life, call my own shots, go it alone. But that feeling is basic dishonesty. I can't go it alone. I have to get help from other people, and I can't ultimately rely on myself. I'm dependent on God for my next breath. It is dishonest of me to pretend that I'm anything but a man, small, weak, and limited. So living independent of God is a self-delusion. It's not just a matter of pride being an unfortunate little trait and humility being an attractive little virtue. It's our inner psychological integrity that's at stake. When I'm conceited, I'm lying to myself about what I am. I'm pretending to be God and not man. My pride is the idolatrous worship of myself. And that is the national religion of hell. Jesus said that the person that wants to be first in the kingdom has to be what? Last. Whoever wants to be first must be the slave of all. I don't like that. The slave of all? It's okay if I choose to do it, but slave means that I don't even have a choice. Even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many. Paul echoed this truth when he said, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition for vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others." Honestly, we fall short there, don't we? And James warns us that when we do that, we shipwreck our lives. When we don't look out for the needs of others, when we're governed by selfish ambitions, bad things happen. Pride, dishonesty is self-destructive. And here's the thing, it's not just harmful to me, it's harmful to everyone around me. It's a sin that we have to learn to turn away from. And I don't think it's a sin that we'll ever have victory from completely until the day we're in heaven. Father, I thank you. I thank you for the truth of these words, and I pray that each one of us would become more and more and more, that we would grow more like your Son, Jesus Christ, the ultimate giver. Going as far as not only just sacrificing his comfort, his personal preferences, but sacrificing his very life for us. And doing it for our benefit, that we can have fellowship with you today, tomorrow, and for all of eternity. Help us to see ourselves as you see us. People of infinite value. Help us to be willing to serve others, to put our preferences down and to pick up your purpose of reaching those that are lost in their sin, just as we were. We might not be speeding as fast as they were, but we were still speeding. And the only way we can accomplish this is through the power of your Holy Spirit dwelling in us as we trust you and we're obedient to you. And in living this way, we'll bring you honor and glory and praise. In Christ's name I pray, and everyone said,
Amen.